This week, Ninja News Japan has partnered with an app called Newsly. What is Newsly? Why are you telling me about it? Well, you listen to podcasts. I know because you're listening to this podcast right now. And there is a base assumption that you actually are interested in news because that's what this podcast is kind of about. I know you're really here for my charming personality, the light humor that peppers this podcast. But you're here because you like listening to news. You listen to the news. Is there another way I could do that would be better for me? Because maybe there's an article and you want to read that article, but you don't have time because you're driving, you have your podcast time. You don't have reading time. You like things to go in your ear holes, not your eye holes. So, is there an app that can do that? Well, coincidence, there is. It's called Newsly. Newsly is an app for Android and iOS. It takes web articles with the most trending topics on any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice, just like my natural human voice. I am human and at times very natural. The web has become listenable. So basically, you have an article, you pick the article, you don't want to read it, you want to listen to it, just like a podcast. You click in Newsly, and there you go. You can stop scrolling, you can start listening to all the internet, not just podcasts. But don't stop listening to podcasts. The podcasts are important, especially this one. They also have podcasts as well from over 40 countries, like Ninja News Japan. It's going to be there too. So you can download Newsly for free, newsly.me, or the link in the description. And if you use the promo code N1NJA 2021, that's ninja, but it's spelled like the cyber hacker way, like it was early 2000s. So Ninja 2021, but not an I, a 1 to show everyone that you're a cool hacker person in cyber. Cyber hacker, a ninja cyber hacker. A ninja cyber hacker would not spell it N1. I just messed that up. A cyber hacker would not spell it ninja cyber hacker. They would be N1NJA, C4, ooh, it's like cyber, B3R, and then they wouldn't even split hacker because cyber ninja. I mean, isn't that enough? Don't you know? So, anyways, N1NJA, the cyber way to spell ninja. 2021, Ninja 2021. If you put that in, you can get a premium subscription for 1 month free. So support Ninja News Japan. Try out Newsly. See if it makes you happy. If it makes you happy, I'm glad I could have made you happy a little bit. If not, I mean, again, no cost to you. So don't, think about it too much. It hasn't hurt you. Hasn't done anything bad to you. Stop scrolling, start listening. This was my first ad read. And let's put it this way. You want more ad reads as awful as that one. So if you do, support Newsly, support Ninja News Japan, maybe I'll get more ads and I will spend 4 minutes talking about how bad I just read that ad to you. Because that's what we're all looking for here. I would like to get famous off how bad my ad reads are. And then the companies, they're still obligated to fulfill their end of the bargain if I do the ad read. It doesn't say anything about doing it well, which is just, that's my zone. Coronavirus. Cumulatively, Japan has reached 1 million cases, and the Delta variant has hit Japan. There were 15,645 cases last Friday. Now, this is hard to take because it's huge for Japan, but in the group of 7, not the artists, the rich countries in the world. It is the group of 7, right? I think it's a Canadian thing. I don't know if anyone else will know it. There's a group of 7 painters. I had to visit their house, I think, as like a field trip once when I was a kid. It involves Emily Carr, and I went to Emily Carr Middle School. That is all very personal information that you don't care about. Does it? I don't remember. I don't remember who Emily Carr is. I went to that school for 3 years. Now, the 1 million cases, it is significantly lower than the amount of cases in, let's say, if you're comparing to the US. But the thing is, how do you compare to the US? The US population is much higher. So 1/10 might be nothing. It might be a lot. So I'm pretty sure that has to be per capita. They didn't explain it in the article. And this is one of the things, articles actually have to be really clear, because your explanation, that's really important. Suga, and I used to like Suga, and my respect for him has dropped significantly throughout the Olympics. He said the Olympics had no impact on coronavirus numbers, despite the fact that as soon as the Olympics started, coronavirus started to rise up. Now, I think what they're talking about is within the bubble, there were not that many cases. There's the Olympic Village, they made a bubble. They tried to make it really secure. They tried to like make sure everyone was safe. There were not that many cases, because that wasn't a big news story. We did have some. You had the Uganda guy who showed up, and he already had it, and there was a couple athletes who already had it, and they were isolated. It's not like the coronavirus ran rampant throughout the Olympics. So I think that's what they're calling a success. It did still draw crowds. Things still happened, and the numbers went up as soon as the Olympics started. Now we're getting into the summer vacation for almost everyone in Japan, and the government is saying, please don't travel. A lot of people are saying it's pretty ironic that you just held one of the biggest sports events in the world, and then you're telling me I'm not supposed to travel to keep everyone safe. I think the Olympics had no impact on the coronavirus, was absolute garbage. Again, I'm not a scientist, so I can't really say that what I'm saying is accurate, but it bugs me when you can see something happen and the numbers go up immediately and you say there's no association there. The other coronavirus news. This one's fun. So when I looked at this, there were actually 3 people on this. So if you go to this website, it is the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. That is mhlw.go.jp. If you actually want to join in the public shaming, you can. You go to the 3rd tab over, and then you get this very Japanese looking website. Japanese web design is still ancient. It's like the very first websites from when the internet started in like 1995. Like, this is what I would have made when I was in university. But we're not here to talk about web design. We're here to talk about coronavirus. So what they've started doing is they've started taking, so here we have August 6th and August 4th. We click on one of those, and what do we get? We get someone's name, Yoneda Yusaku. And they went to Australia, and they're 20 years old, and it has sort of the circumstances, and they came back. And what they're actually doing is, if you break quarantine, so you get back from a trip, you're supposed to break quarantine. You're supposed to stay in quarantine, not break quarantine. You're not supposed to break quarantine. And if you're supposed to check in with the authorities. The interesting thing to me is that we did a story a while ago, and it was on how people in the hotels were being checked on, and they were using line, and you just had to like answer. The story there was that they didn't get a response and didn't go check on the person. The person died in the hotel. It's very sad. These are people who are supposed to respond. They don't. They leave usually their house because they're being self-quarantined at home. So here we have Yuki Kawaguchi, Kipros, and she's 30. She lives in Tokyo. So she broke quarantine. She didn't respond to the authorities. This public shaming didn't work last time. Now, what I'm talking about is when the coronavirus started, they started public shaming pachinko parlors. And those pachinko parlors, what happened was they were supposed to close and some didn't. And so the government's like, we're going to say we're going to put it out there. This pachinko parlor is open and they shouldn't be. They're naughty, naughty people. The problem is, for the people who wanted to play pachinko, that was just an advertisement of where they could go play pachinko. And my point is, if someone is going to break quarantine, if you're the kind of person that breaks quarantine, you're also probably the kind of person that public shaming doesn't really work on. And that's maybe the first problem they have to deal with. I get the public shaming. It is embarrassing. When I actually went to this website the first time, down here, right now there's, again, August 6th and August 4th. There was actually another one, and it was a pair of guys who went. So I don't know how you get off this list. Do you start checking in? Do you apologize? Do you say, I will be a good person from now on? I don't know. But you can get off that list, or maybe just after a certain amount of time, you gets dropped off because you've been in the country, you haven't gotten sick, you haven't made anyone else sick. Public shaming is a very Japanese way of dealing with a problem. It's not actually punishing them. It's saying we're going to embarrass you publicly, and that's how we're going to deal with this. As we've seen with past exercises, it only works if you feel public shame, and that's the first problem. This is sort of the Olympics. When Olympic athletes win gold medals, they come back to their hometown and they are lauded as heroes. I don't have a problem with that. They are then asked or forced, I'm not sure. They are then invited, let's say, I assume. They make a courtesy visit to the mayor. And then they have like a little press conference. It's good for the mayor. The mayor can say, oh, look, our town produces Olympic athletes. The athlete gets a little attention. That's fine. I'm not a big fan of this, only because I don't think the athlete should have to go see the politician. I think the politician should go to visit the athlete because they're the one who won the gold medal. I don't see why they're being subservient to this mayor who hasn't done anything. I was about to say something really rude. So this happened in Nagoya. Now, the Nagoya mayor, he kind of overstepped the line. So they've met, and then the mayor of Nagoya says, hey, can I feel your Olympic medal? Can I touch it? And this girl, she's on the softball team. I'll put it on your neck. It'll be super awesome. You can turn around. It's a nice photo op. And, everyone's happy. So the mayor of Nagoya, he gets real excited. He weighs it. He goes, oh, it's really heavy. Wow. Then he pulls down his mask and he does the very cliche biting it to see if it's real gold. Now, the girl in this is laughing along with it, but she doesn't really have a choice. That's problematic for several reasons. This is related to the coronavirus stories. It's, first of all, why are you wearing a mask? You're wearing a mask because there's a pandemic going on and you're not supposed to be spreading your stupid mouth germs anywhere. And what he does is he puts his stupid mouth germs on this girl's Olympic medal. So, of course, people on the internet freaked out. Now, people on the internet freak out about everything, but I think this one is justified. I think him putting his gross saliva, okay, even if there was no pandemic, I don't think you should be biting other people's medals. Now, you can get, he was excited. This was a really neat thing. You probably only get to touch an Olympic medal once in your life. He wanted to do the pretend it's real. There's actually a bunch of athletes don't want to do it. That's actually something you don't know. So they'll put it up to their mouth for the photo op because it's actually photographers shouting at them, bite the medal, bite the medal, bite the medal. I actually would think personally that Olympic athletes would have more sort of mettle to say no to the media. This is where I've become a fan of Naomi Osaka, where it's like she would just say no and not do it. And that's one of the things I love. I hate tennis. I like her. So the internet went wild. The interesting part was other Olympic athletes. Now, I, of course, followed judo stuff more than anything else. So there's the judo guys. And again, these are big, tough dudes. So I was wondering what they would say. So we had an Olympic gold medalist, Takato Nagahisa. Naohisa. My writing's really poor. It's not that I can't pronounce Japanese. It's just my writing's so poor I can't actually read the letters because I wrote it so fast. On Twitter, he said, I heard the clink of his teeth hitting the metal. And I would have cried. I treat my metal so carefully. This is real gold. So it's actually quite malleable. You could actually take a chunk out of it if you bit it hard. That's why they bit it. They used to bite it to see if it was real gold, because if you bit it, it would actually leave a tooth mark. So if he hit it hard enough with his mouth, I know he's not really biting, but if he hit it hard enough with his mouth, he could actually leave a mark in it. And so this guy's saying, I keep mine really carefully. I put them in a case, I assume, something like that, to make sure they don't get out of the little bits taken out of them. Another judo guy goes, if he bit my medal, ... I should stop speaking. It's basically implying that he would murder him on live television. The mayor's office received 4,000 complaints. And that's a lot for just this guy got excited and did a bad thing. I think it's horrendous. I don't think he should have done it. More so because it's a pandemic and he's putting his mouth on other people's stuff. And it's gross, and don't do that. In fact, if we're being really honest, don't put your mouth on other people's stuff ever. That's just sort of should be like a rule in life, uh, unless it's consensual. So if you ask first, can I put my mouth on your stuff? And the person says, yes, please put your mouth on my stuff. Then I think you should put your mouth on their stuff. But if it's not consensual, don't put your mouth on other people's stuff. It went so far, Toyota Motor Corporation, it's actually really close to Nagoya. So it's sort of relevant. I actually don't, maybe it's not relevant. Toyota is a big company. They literally put out a statement that said, dick move, dude. They didn't write it in those concise words, but that is what they were saying. They were like, Mayor of Nagoya, this is Toyota, the car company, saying, dick move. And it's actually pretty bad when corporations are complaining about it. Like we're talking about Toyota, tried to delay emission standards, actually felt that they had bet wrong on EV cars, and then tried to like impede EV stuff going through in America. This is a shitty thing that a shitty company did, trying to pollute the world more longer. And they're saying, dick move to the mayor of Nagoya. Since we're talking about government, that's the relationship between these two stories. I haven't worked on segues yet, but maybe I should start making that more of a thing. Taro Kono. You gotta be really careful. There's a couple Taros in government. Some of them are really crappy. Some of them are good. This is one of the not bad ones. He wants to get rid of faxes in government. And probably in any modern situation, you're thinking, faxes in government? Is that still a thing we have to talk about? I have gone off on old men in Japanese government for a long time. Like these are guys in their 70s and 80s. They don't have modern sensibilities. They don't have modern ideas. The guy who was in charge of technology in Japan, I believe still, doesn't know how to use a smartphone. And I thought that was just a travesty. Why is this man allowed to be in charge of technology if he doesn't know how to use any technology? And his retort was, I am important enough that I have someone to do that for me. So I just have to make decisions about technology. I don't have to actually use it, which is actually the problem being that if you don't know how to use technology, you don't know how to make good, sensible decisions about technology because you don't understand what you're making decisions about. I think would have been the counter argument to, I have people to do that for me. Anyways, Taro feels that fax machines kind of represent the red tape in government in Japan. Everything's really hard in Japan. It's really difficult. We should get rid of fax machines. We should make everything more sort of smooth. And he said by the end of the month, this was last month, so June, he said by the end of the month, you have to either get rid of your fax machines or you have to be able to give me a good reason why. He wanted everyone to switch to email. He got over 400 offices that turned around and said, no, we don't want to get rid of our fax machines. And so the reasons were varied. The validity of the reasons were also varied. The first one said is a backup for communication. So during a event, let's say like we just had a tsunami, not a tsunami, we just had a hurricane come through, a typhoon. So that shuts down communications. Now, it sounds like you have two modes of communication, but if the phone lines go down, fax machines also go down because they run through the phone lines. If your internet goes down, probably your fax machine is also going to go down because actually it's probably off the internet now. Most things digital are actually running through the same wire. So if the wire goes down for one thing, it's going to go down for all the things. So that one, I don't really buy. The next one actually is pretty valid. It said it's popular with the public and it's a line of communication. Now you might go, what do you mean fax machines are popular with the public? Because Japan has an aging population, most people are old. And old people, like the actual complaint is that these old politicians use faxes because it's all they know how to use. That's actually the same for a majority of the population. They know how to use fax machines. It's how they communicate with the government. I actually think that's an acceptable reason because the whole point of government is they're supposed to be in contact with the public at large. They're supposed to have open lines of communication. If your public only knows how to use fax machines, I think it's acceptable to use fax machines. Now, you could have those fax machines. The fax gets sent to your phone number and then it gets changed into an email. I know that's a technology that exists. But I think, honestly, it's acceptable. If you can say that most of our communication with the public at large is via fax, then I think you should be allowed to use fax. This is something I didn't know. Press clippings. So let's say a news outlet puts a story out on your office and you want that story. Fax is cheaper than email, which I feel is price gouging. Must be. Or they're trying to discourage people from using. No, I don't know. It's weird. I think because most people just use email, they made that one more expensive because they'll get a little more money because people wouldn't bother to change the fax. I'm not sure. It just seems like email is going to be cheaper because when they produce news, like for the newspaper, they do it in Publisher or on the computer or something like that. So getting that file and putting it into an email is easier than, I guess you could digitally send it to a fax machine, but that makes no difference for them. So I think they've just changed the price to try to make more money from email because that's going to be the more normal way. But then the second question is, how many press clippings are you getting a year? Anyway, yeah, fax is cheaper than email. So I'm wondering how many, yeah, there you go. I'm wondering how many press clippings you get a year that would justify maintaining the fax and the cost. And then the last one, which a lot of offices said, the fax machine is less vulnerable to cyber attacks, which is absolutely not true. So the story actually went into a little more detail about that one. Fax machines, because they're so simple, people, if they have your phone number, your fax number, and they can get to the phone line, which is very easy to do, they can hack into your fax machine. Usually now it's an all-in-one, so they can scan and fax and print all at the same time, which means anytime you scan something, they can get a copy. Anytime you print something, they can get a copy of it. It's actually way more vulnerable to have these all-in-one fax machines than use a computer. So that one is just not true. And it would be interesting because they can take over your thing and start printing stuff. So basically, they could start printing pictures of their butt, which is the classic, just over and over and over again in your fax machine in your office. I think the thing is hackers just don't bother with fax machines right now because everything's on computers. So that's what they work on. But by the same message, it is actually easier to hack a fax machine than it is to hack a computer. This is an interesting story only because it shows the lack of foresight for governing bodies. The royal family in Japan, the imperial family. Now, they've been having an issue that they do not have enough male heirs right now. So they're saying, like, we're going to run out of boys to be emperor. This is terrifying. What if we end up with only women? Wah! And then we can't have that. So we could end up with an empress. This is actually historically has happened, I believe, 3 or 4 times in Japanese history. They've had an empress and not an emperor. So there is actually a precedent for it, but they're having little heart attacks, saying like, "Oh, we don't want a lady in charge. That'll ruin Japan." Again, this position, emperor, empress, completely ceremonial. They don't have any real say over the country. So what does it matter if it's a man or a woman or whatever in that position? It just doesn't make sense to me. So they're saying we don't have enough men babies. What are we going to do? They haven't actually come up with a solution because they haven't actually gone into the very obvious, let's just let a woman be empress. I think that would be really cool. I actually do. Since it doesn't mean anything, just let whoever's there be in charge. I actually think, so this was something I got off on the other day. I think the emperor, empress position, the imperial family is fine. I don't believe in it because, well, I mean, I believe in it. It's real. I mean, I don't believe in it as a useful position in society, but it's ceremonial. I'm okay with them getting a certain amount of money to do that job. That's actually okay. The thing I want them to do, though, is get jobs. So I think it would be really cool if the emperor and empress had to work in companies. Now, I'm not saying they had to be particularly hard jobs or anything. They still need enough time off to do their ceremonial duties. But I think they should be able to make salaries to offset how much it would cost for their lifestyles. Anyways, that's irrelevant to the actual story. My first part is actually kind of irrelevant too. This isn't actually about having a female empress. It's actually about the lack of male heirs. Let's say there's a princess and she marries me. This isn't my second wife. I'm single dude, better looking than I'm like young, so I'm better looking than I am now. I was a better looking kid than I am at like 50. Okay. She and I fall in love and she marries me, a commoner. That doesn't mean I suddenly become in line to be emperor. They haven't decided yet, but they all have agreed that if a woman marries a commoner, she will retain imperial status, but the kids and the husband do not. So what they've done is said, we're going to let women marry non-imperial status people, but their kids are not in line to be emperor. Without taking into account, we don't have enough boys to be emperor. So let's cut off the line that could actually get us a new boy heir. And it's because, like, let's say I still wouldn't be king. That's fine. Like, in England, Prince Queen Elizabeth's husband, Philip, he was never king. I don't know why, but it didn't matter. She was the queen, and then her kids will be kings and queens and stuff like that. They could actually do it the same way. The imperial succession goes through the family, not the people you marry to. That's fine. So I'm married to the empress, but I'm not emperor, and then our kids will be the next in line. I think that actually, I've just discovered the reason. If she could marry a foreigner like me, then you'd have this like half kid who's diluted, who would then suddenly be emperor of Japan. That's not acceptable. I mean, you want something that's even worse than a woman, you get a half Japanese person in there. Unacceptable. It's dumb. It's dumb because this is a made up thing that isn't real. It's not a real position. It doesn't really matter. So why are you making it harder for yourself? They're going to run out of heirs and then have to make the decision. Either we have a female empress or nothing. I am excitedly waiting for that day to happen. The only problem is it's like generational, so I might be dead before it actually happens. But I really, really want to see what happens when we get to that point. Last story of the day. There's a dude, and he's like me, he has big glasses on. And he was meeting with sex workers, and he was using a camera hidden in his glasses to film the trysts. And he posted the footage to FC2. FC2 is a website where lots of pornography happens. I'm not encouraging you to go there, but it is one that comes up every time. So people in Japan seem to use this one. It's like it's not the Japanese Pornhub because they can post. I think it's hosted in the Caribbean. And the idea is that if you're hosting stuff in the Caribbean, but it's mostly Japanese stuff, it's uncensored because it doesn't fall under Japanese rules. So I think it's where a lot of Japanese people go to see their uncensored pornography. Different issue. In 1 month, he made 1 million yen. So he's actually making pretty good money off these videos. When he was arrested, he said, I thought if I made money, I could visit more sex shops. So basically, he's trying to create a perpetual motion machine of sex work where he meets a sex worker, has sex and films it, puts the video on the internet, makes money, visits more sex workers. Turns out the sex workers weren't too happy about this. So one of them actually called the police. So she said there was something strange about his thick glasses. So she called the cops and she had him investigated, and they found the videos. The videos had 33 different women. So this guy's spending a lot of money and time on sex work. And yeah, I can see like that's going to be a significant amount of your income. You're going to have to find other ways to make money. It's just, I was wondering if he couldn't actually work out a deal with the sex worker. Like if you tell them in advance, I want to film this, I will give you a percentage of the money, or at least get their permission first, then he wouldn't get in trouble. Or was the secretness part of the thrill? Like the video actually is like, this person doesn't know they're being filmed. I'm using my secret sexy glasses. I don't know. It doesn't really work for me. I think maybe I'm too honest. There's a reason I'm not a criminal or doing crime-like things. It's because I would have been like, well, it only makes sense to pay royalties at least, or work out a deal with them, maybe a one-time lump sum payment. And there you go. Everyone's happy. We're all making money. Maybe we even make more money in the long run because I now have people who are on board with the deal. But he's been arrested. He was arrested for using electronic means to distribute obscene media. So I don't know if that's a law, but that's what he's being arrested for. And that is something you have to be careful of. In Japan, you are not allowed to secretly film people and post it on the internet. If you didn't already know that, which you absolutely should have.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube/Velocipodcast or streaming on twitch.tv/chunkmcbeefchest. You can find Ninja News Japan on Facebook. Send questions or comments to speakpipe.com/Velocipodcast for your first step to fame. Not the good kind, the fleeting pointless kind. Link in the description. Check out all the podcasts in the Velocipodcast family. See McBee, Ninja News Japan, and Daily Affirmations Weekly. Remember, Peter sold out today. He doesn't do this for love, but for money. Disgusting money. Sexy out, homies.
All right, so I'd like to thank Newsly for sort of being a partner this week. I'm not getting money off it. Basically, what happens is they will feature my podcast for a week when I do this ad. But it's a neat thing. Hopefully, it will help grow the podcast a little bit. I had something else I was going to say, but